Success doesn't happen in crowds. It doesn't grow in noise. It doesn't bloom in the comfort of being surrounded by people who expect nothing from you except that you stay the same. Success requires distance. Real distance. The kind that forces you to confront who you are without the influence, opinions, or distractions of anyone else. People don't understand this because most of them are terrified of being alone. They fear silence. They fear their own thoughts. They fear what might happen if they stop drowning their mind with constant stimulation. But success? Success lives in the places where most people are unwilling to go. Isolation is not punishment. It's preparation. The world has convinced you that being alone is a sign of weakness, that solitude means something is wrong with your life. But that's because the world is built by people who cannot handle themselves. They need noise to feel alive. They need validation to feel important. They need company to avoid facing the person they see in the mirror. And somehow, society has accepted this as normal. But nothing great has ever been built by someone who feared being alone. Every leader, every creator, every visionary spent a period of their life in isolation, long stretches of silence where they separated themselves from the world to build the version of themselves the world could not ignore. Because here's the truth they never tell you. You cannot become powerful while staying surrounded by the same people who keep you ordinary. You cannot grow in an environment built on distraction. You cannot evolve when every minute of your life is filled with noise. You cannot create a new identity while clinging to the comfort of your old one. At some point, you must step away, not because you hate people, not because you think you're better, but because you have something bigger to build. Isolation becomes necessary the moment you decide that your future matters more than your present comfort. People won't understand why you stop showing up. Why you stop texting back. Why you disappear. Why you become harder to reach. They'll assume you're depressed. They'll assume you're angry. They'll assume you're lost. But you're not lost. You're focused. For the first time in your life, you are choosing yourself instead of choosing distractions. And that scares people, because your growth highlights their stagnation. They want you accessible, predictable, available to entertain them and validate them. But you cannot rise if you are constantly pulled back into the same cycles, the same conversations, the same energy that kept you small. Isolation is the separation required for elevation. Think about it. When a rocket launches, it breaks away from the earth. When a seed grows, it is buried in darkness. When steel becomes strong, it is heated alone. When lions walk, they walk alone. Everything powerful in this world grows through isolation first. But most people never reach that level, because they refuse to detach from the people who bring them comfort. They cling to friendships built on old versions of themselves. They stay in environments that feed their weakness instead of their potential. They remain available to everyone, responding to every message, attending every event, losing hours to meaningless conversations. And then they wonder why nothing changes. They wonder why life feels repetitive. They wonder why dreams stay dreams instead of becoming real. The truth is harsh but simple. You cannot become someone new while constantly surrounded by people who only know the old you. The moment you choose isolation, clarity appears. You start to hear your own thoughts without outside interference. You begin to see what truly matters and what doesn't. You understand which habits are destroying you. You recognize how much time you waste trying to maintain relationships that died long ago. You realize how much of your energy has been spent trying to please people who don't even respect themselves. And suddenly, the silence feels less like loneliness and more like freedom. You start enjoying being unreachable. You start appreciating the peace. You start learning that the most dangerous person in the world is the one who can sit alone with their own mind and remain focused. The stronger you become, the smaller your circle gets. Not because you push people away, but because your new path cannot be walked by the weak. Success demands you leave behind the version of yourself that needs company to feel complete. Success demands you detach from noise. Success demands you cut out people who drain your time, your focus, your potential. Success demands isolation because isolation forces transformation. You won't rise until you separate from the things that keep you grounded. You won't hear your purpose until you silence the world. You won't see the path until you walk away from the crowd. And once you choose that path, once you embrace the solitude instead of running from it, you enter a new phase of life, a phase where you learn who you really are without the influence of anyone else. A phase where you build discipline, sharpen your mind, and rediscover your power. A phase where the world's opinions no longer matter because you no longer live for applause. Isolation reveals truth. Isolation reveals strength. Isolation reveals purpose. Isolation reveals identity. This is why success requires it. Not sometimes. Not occasionally. Not when you feel like it. Always. There is a difference between being lonely and being isolated, and most people never learn that difference because they spend their whole lives surrounded by noise. Loneliness is what you feel when you want company. Isolation is what you choose when you want transformation. Loneliness is emotional discomfort. Isolation is strategic withdrawal. Loneliness is fear. Isolation is power. Weak people confuse the two because they have never used solitude as a weapon. They only know the kind of silence that hurts, not the kind that builds. They think being alone means something is wrong with you, when in reality, it often means you're finally doing something right. They think isolation is emptiness, but isolation is full of purpose, discipline, clarity, and brutal honesty. Isolation forces you to face the truth without the anesthesia of distraction. It strips away your excuses. It exposes your habits. It confronts you with the reality of who you are and who you are becoming. That confrontation is painful. That's why so few people choose it. But that confrontation is necessary. That's where growth happens, not in comfort, not in applause, not in the presence of others, but in the quiet moments where you have no choice but to meet yourself. Loneliness is a feeling. Isolation is a decision. And if you want to become someone powerful, someone disciplined, someone unfazed by the world, you must learn to choose isolation even when loneliness whispers in your ear. Because it will whisper. It will try to convince you that something is missing. It will try to pull you back into the arms of distraction. It will try to make you chase company simply because being alone feels unfamiliar. But the unfamiliar is where greatness is built. Most people never reach their potential because they are addicted to constant connection. They always need someone to talk to, someone to validate them, someone to distract them from their own thoughts. They cannot sit alone for even 10 minutes without reaching for a screen, a message, a notification, anything to avoid hearing the truth their mind is trying to show them. But you? You are choosing a different path. Your isolation is not a prison, it's a forge. A place where the old you burns away and the new you is shaped. Isolation teaches you discipline by stripping away the artificial dopamine that ruins your focus. It teaches you clarity by removing the opinions that cloud your judgment. It teaches you strength by forcing you to rely on yourself instead of leaning on the comfort of others. In isolation, you begin to understand who actually deserves a place in your future. You see people's true roles in your life not by how they act when you're present, but by how they react when you pull away. Suddenly, you see who supports you and who only uses you. You see who respects your boundaries and who violates them. You see who grows with you and who gets threatened by your evolution. Isolation exposes the difference between real relationships and attachments born from habit and convenience. People who truly care will respect your silence. People who don't will try to break it. Some will accuse you of being distant because they only valued you when you were available to distract them from their own emptiness. Some will guilt-trip you because they benefited from the weaker version of you. Some will get angry simply because you decided to prioritize your future over their comfort. And some will disappear the moment you stop entertaining their chaos. Good. Let them. Isolation reveals who has to go. And once they go, you finally create the space needed for the right people and the right opportunities to enter your life. But understand this clearly: before you meet the people meant for your next level, you will spend a long time walking alone. This is not punishment. This is alignment. This is protection. This is preparation. The loneliness that you fear is temporary. The strength that isolation gives you is permanent. When you strip away everything familiar, you begin to see your life for what it really is. You notice where you're wasting time. You notice where you're sabotaging yourself. You notice which habits are killing your potential. You notice which environments drain your energy. Isolation puts a spotlight on the truth that was always there but too covered in noise for you to hear. And once you see the truth, you can no longer unsee it. Isolation forces you to develop self-respect. When you're alone, you realize how often you compromised your values just to keep the peace. How many times you lowered your standards just to fit in. How often you pretended to be less so others could feel more. How much of your life you gave away because you feared being by yourself. But in isolation, you reclaim your power. You relearn your worth. You rebuild your identity. And slowly, you stop needing external validation because you discover something far more important: internal conviction. The longer you stay in isolation, the more it molds you. Your mind sharpens. Your confidence grows. Your habits transform. Your purpose becomes louder. Your distractions lose their appeal. Your old life stops fitting you. You begin to prefer the silence. You begin to crave the solitude. You begin to value your energy more than the attention of others. And this is when the world starts to notice that something is different about you. You're quieter but stronger. You're alone but grounded. You're distant but focused. You're unavailable but unshaken. You're no longer seeking connection, you're choosing it with intention. You're no longer available to everyone, you're available to your future. Isolation doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes you dangerous. It makes you unstoppable. Because once you learn to stand alone, no one can break you. No one can manipulate you. No one can distract you. No one can influence you. No one can pull you away from your path. This is the purpose of isolation. To build the version of you that cannot be shaken by the world you're about to conquer. There comes a moment in your journey where isolation stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like transformation. A moment where the silence becomes familiar, comforting, even necessary. A moment where your old identity feels foreign, your old habits feel fragile, your old surroundings feel small. This is the moment where you begin to evolve into someone entirely new, someone the world can no longer recognize, predict, or control. This is the moment where you become unreachable. Unreachable doesn't mean you disappear forever. It means you rise above the frequency where most people operate. It means you stop fighting battles that don't matter. It means you stop chasing people who drain you. It means you stop engaging in conversations that add nothing to your life. It means you stop giving access to those who never deserved it. Success demands that you elevate mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And elevation always creates distance. Not distance you force, but distance that forms naturally as you grow. When you start thinking differently, your environment shifts. When you start acting differently, your relationships shift. When you start valuing your future over your comfort, your entire world shifts. The strongest version of you cannot be formed in the presence of people who only knew the weakest version of you. You outgrow them, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. The path you are walking requires focus, discipline, and mental clarity the average person cannot understand. They are still living in distraction. You are living in direction. People will say you've changed, and they'll be right. You changed your priorities. You changed your habits. You changed your standards. You changed your world. You changed your mind. And your mind is what leads everything else. The more you grow, the less relatable you become. Not because you think you're better, but because most people refuse to grow at all. They stay stuck in cycles you escaped from. They cling to excuses you destroyed. They hold on to comfort you walked away from. When you become someone who chooses growth, you start to look different to those who choose stagnation. They will look at your silence as ego. They will look at your focus as coldness. They will look at your improvement as a threat. And they will try to pull you back, not because you're wrong, but because your evolution makes them uncomfortable. But there is a point on your journey where their voices no longer reach you. Their opinions no longer shape you. Their doubts no longer touch you. Their energy no longer influences you. That point is when you become unreachable. Unreachable to negativity. Unreachable to toxicity. Unreachable to manipulation. Unreachable to distractions. Unreachable to the old version of yourself. This is the moment where isolation turns into elevation. The moment where being alone becomes your greatest advantage. The moment where you no longer seek validation. You seek victory. You seek mastery. You seek alignment with your highest potential. People used to have unlimited access to you. Now they only have access if they qualify. They must bring peace, purpose, or progress. Or they do not belong in your life. Your circle becomes so small that it almost disappears. Not because you hate connection, but because you finally understand that most connections are designed to keep you from rising. The wrong people slow you down, confuse your vision, poison your focus, drain your energy, and sabotage your discipline. Isolation clears the path. In this stage, your focus becomes a weapon. You think differently. You move differently. You speak differently. You spend your time differently. You protect your energy like it's your most valuable asset. Because it is. People start saying things like, "You're too busy. You're never around. You're obsessed. You're not the same anymore." And every one of those statements is a sign you're on the right path. Mediocrity wants company. Excellence requires separation. This is the stage where the outside world stops being your priority. You stop looking for approval. You stop trying to fit in. You stop caring what people think about your decisions or your pace or your dreams. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your ambition. You stop apologizing for wanting more. Your silence becomes intentional. Your boundaries become unbreakable. Your standards become non-negotiable. You are no longer interested in being accessible. You are interested in becoming exceptional. And exceptional people do not live like everyone else. They don't spend their time on nonsense. They don't entertain drama. They don't chase temporary pleasure. They don't dilute their potential to make others comfortable. They don't shrink to avoid being judged. They don't stay where they've outgrown. Exceptional people embrace isolation because they know isolation is the birthplace of transformation. Isolation is where the mind sharpens. Isolation is where identity shifts. Isolation is where purpose becomes clear. Isolation is where discipline becomes natural. Isolation is where greatness begins. You will emerge from this phase different. Calmer, wiser, stronger, quieter, more dangerous. The version of you that once needed attention will disappear. The version of you that once needed company will fade. The version of you that once feared loneliness will die. And in its place, a new version of you will rise. The version that needs nothing from anyone. Because it has learned to draw strength from within. This is what it means to become unreachable. Not distant. Not arrogant. Not cold. But elevated. Your isolation made you. Your silence transformed you. Your focus protected you. Your discipline built you. And now, the world that once had access to you must work for the privilege of reaching you again. You are no longer who you were. You are no longer available. You are no longer breakable. You are no longer distracted. You are unreachable. Because you are rising.